What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to go through a ton of little details regarding Black Ops 7's multiplayer that we can gather if we go through frame by frame from all of the multiplayer clips we got with the Black Ops 7 direct reveal. And I was quite surprised to see just how much information I was able to find out about the game just by taking a very close look at things. Now, if you guys are looking for more general features and details that have been confirmed and talked about, I did cover that in a separate video when the reveal first happened, so I will leave that link down below. Today, we're focusing on the little details that haven't really been talked about or confirmed at this point. Keeping in mind, we're only looking at the multiplayer clips. There were also a lot of campaign clips showing off a bunch of crazy stuff, but it looks like many of the campaign mechanics are just not going to be in multiplayer, like that insane super jump, for instance. So diving right in, let's start off with this clip here where we get our first really good look at the HUD. And with this HUD, first off, to the right of the Peacekeeper icon on the bottom right, that is the field upgrade slot. And I could be wrong, of course, but that looks a whole lot like the ACS from Modern Warfare 3, which is a field upgrade that you can place on an objective and it will act as a friendly player when it comes to capturing that objective, like a domination flag or hardpoint, for instance. So that's pretty interesting. Also, I noticed this player has 3 tactical grenades and 1 lethal, so that 3 tacticals is probably some form of a perk or wildcard or something like that. We don't know what the loadout structure would look like at this point, but little clues like this could give us some indication. I also wanted to point out on the bottom left, there is a bar there that says 100%. Every HUD clip that we've seen so far for multiplayer has shown this, and it's always at 100%. So I don't know if that's just an aesthetic thing and it's just always going to be there showing 100%, or if it actually means something when it comes to gameplay. Perhaps this has something to do with the overclock system that they talked about. But then again, from the looks of this match just started, so it's unlikely that would have charged up so quickly, and we just don't have enough information to reliably guess what that is. But then for the next clip that also shows the HUD, there were only a few of these clips to show that. We can see this shotgun is called the Echo 12, but just a heads up, I'm not going to focus too much on all of the guns. That's going to be a separate video because there's enough going on here. We've seen enough weapons that I can make an entirely separate video on that, and that is in the works. We can also see now the player has 3 tacticals and 2 lethals. So again, probably a perk or wildcard sort of situation going on there, or maybe even a combat specialty. For the field upgrade, that does appear to be a trophy system, and we'll talk about trophy systems a bit later. And we can see an indication to mount as well. I believe this was talked about and confirmed that you can mount, and not only that, you can also mount and strafe if you're on a horizontal surface. And finally, you can see the score streaks on the right. The top score streak is the dog. The middle one appears to be some form of like a Hellstorm missile or something. And then finally, the bottom one, my best guess is like a counter UAV because we have another indicator that we'll talk about later on that looks like a UAV or personal radar. And we will be talking about these score streak costs later on as well because we get a better indicator later on. Next, we can see a player controlling a sentry gun, but it has the option to exit as well. So it looks like you can control it or just leave it to do its own thing in sentry mode. And I wanted to point out an emblem and calling card showed up, and these are reused assets from Black Ops 6. We know carry forward is happening, so these will likely be available in the game, and they are probably also just sort of placeholders for now, so we'll see what happens with that. Then with this clip here, we see the player sliding and attempting to aim down sights, and it puts them into a tack stance, which was mentioned with the reveal. Apparently, we won't be able to aim down sight in the middle of a slide unless we're using a specific perk that allows us to do that. So it appears if you're not using that perk, it's going to go the Modern Warfare 3 route, which is force you into a tack stance. And honestly, I don't really mind that, especially if there is a perk that you can use if you really want to aim down sight fully and slide. I think at least going into tack stance is better than having to hip fire and slide. So that's fine with me. And also we can see an RCXD here, which I think is our first look at the RCXD. After that, let's get into one of the most interesting clips from this when looking at things frame by frame. What I initially thought happened when this player fired is there was some crazy exaggerated blood spatter or something, and this was just a really good active camo. But when I looked closer and really slowed things down, you can actually see some form of a tactical nade is coming in. So this explosion of red gas appears to be a tactical grenade, and I believe this red gas is that drug that is prevalent in the campaign that causes you to hallucinate. And as soon as this player starts to be affected by this red gas, you'll notice all of the other operator skins change immediately from one frame to the next. If you pay attention to these character models right here, this is what happens to his teammate. It switches to a totally different one, and that enemy went from this to now this. And then finally, when he gets each of these kills, the moment he finishes the kill, the character models switch back to what they were previously. So as far as I can tell, this is a new piece of equipment that, when you become affected by it, makes your teammates look like enemies and enemies look like teammates. It's almost like a reverse sleeper agent situation or an evolution of the neurogas. Either way, sounds like an interesting concept to me. As long as you know that you're affected by it, then you know that you've got to shoot teammates rather than enemies for as long as that effect persists. Now, to that, we can see the player throwing what appears to be a field upgrade, if I had to guess, on the wall. It does stick to the wall, and it's a little tripod with a pistol that has a laser on it. And at first, I thought the laser was dealing damage to the enemy player, but I don't think that's the case. I think that's just a visual indicator for the players, because you can see it's actually firing bullets out of it. And we also see another clip of that right here. After that, in this clip, we can see it looks like they're bringing back the left-hand throw mechanic for tacticals and lethals. If I remember correctly, this was introduced in Black Ops 4. I'm pretty sure it was in Cold War as well, but it's not in Black Ops 6. But what this allows you to do is hip fire while in the process of throwing your equipment. Also, we can see what appears to be a zipline that you can use. Next, this clip shows off the dog going into sentry mode, which is part of that overclock system they talked about, and I discussed that in that video that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, where I covered a lot of the details they announced, but I just wanted to point out this clip is showing that off, so it will hunker down and it will have a trophy system that pops out of its back, and it will just sort of guard an area here. Next, we've got this drone that you can deploy and control, and the interesting thing about this is this isn't a field upgrade. This appears to be a lethal piece of equipment, kind of like the Breacher drone from Modern Warfare 3, but instead of just flying in a straight line, you can control it. Or it also appears you can set this into automatic mode. You can toggle this manual mode on or off. And with this, I'm a little concerned about this being a lethal piece of equipment. Like, as a field upgrade, I'd probably have no problem, but just as something that you can spawn in with every single time you die. And in this case, you can see the player has 2 in their inventory to start. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to how they end up balancing this. How easy is it to shoot these? It looks like the energy doesn't last for very long, so you've got a very limited time to find a target. And I would assume something like Flak Jacket would be a very hard counter to this anyway. Now, in addition to that, on the HUD, you can see a new field upgrade there. And this is one they actually talked about in the blog post. It's called the Drone Pod. And we saw a little clip of it in the campaign footage where you place this down, and it appears there are 3 autonomous drones that will come out and they'll seek out nearby enemies. So I think it's something you trigger if you get close to it. And if you overclock it, it will rapidly increase the speed at which drones are launched. And the second overclock will leave a minimap icon at each drone's detonation point. Honestly, this one sounds quite annoying to me. Again, we'll have to wait to see how they end up balancing it. Maybe it's really not going to be that annoying or that big of an issue, but it does seem like something that could cause a lot of frustration. Then with this little clip here, a couple things to point out. First off, looks like there's another one of those zipline ropes that you can use to get to a higher elevation. In fact, I think that's the same one I talked about a little bit earlier. We're just now seeing it from below. And on top of that, on the right-hand side, you can see that player is using what appears to be an energy launcher, and it actually looks like it's this launcher here that we saw the weapon inspect of. And it does appear she had to charge this up before firing, but it is lethal to infantry. Next up, with this clip here, it did get some people riled up. The first thing I want to point out is, again, a left-hand throw. This appears to be an EMP grenade, if I'm not mistaken, just judging by the explosion. It doesn't appear to actually hurt the enemy player at all. And then the main thing that's getting people riled up is the wall bounce that was implemented into a sniper jump shot. That is quite a bit of verticality there. They get about 10 feet of air, just judging by like the ceiling height on the first story. And it does show some of the versatility of that. Instead of just navigating certain areas to jump over a gap, it looks like it can also be used effectively in gunfights. And while I personally enjoyed the jetpack era of CODs, and I don't mind seeing this at all, I think it could be a lot of fun. And it's obviously not going to be nearly as prevalent as the actual advanced movement we saw in the past. It's something that's a lot more contextual. I also totally get the hesitation that many people have when it comes to this, because a lot of people weren't into that kind of stuff and they just don't want to see it. Next, we can see the hostage taking system is back from Black Ops 6. That's not really a surprise, but it is now confirmed. Then we've got a few clips from the new Skirmish mode that's coming. Keeping in mind, this is kind of separate from the regular 6v6 multiplayer. This is in the 20v20 mode, and it will have some different mechanics compared to multiplayer, like wingsuits, for instance. And the first thing we can see is the player is activating active camo, which is confirmed to be a field upgrade in the game. We can also see there is an ATV in this mode. They did confirm vehicles will be in this mode, but not regular 6v6. And they didn't actually fire a shot at the first enemy. When they do fire a shot at the second enemy, it will disable the active camo as far as we can see. And then when that player dies, it's worth noting, they dropped an armor plate. And the wingsuiting character they kill as well, you can see they're also dropping an armor plate on death. So in this 20v20 mode, it does look like it's going to be following suit with more Warzone style mechanics where we will have access to armor. Then for the next clip, if we look really close, we can see a trophy system in action for the first time. You can see it's intercepting a projectile there. And while it is smoky, if we jump forward a few frames, you can very faintly see the trophy system on the ground there. After that, we can see a little bit of first-person wingsuit gameplay. Again, this is just in that 20v20 mode for Skirmish. And as he was flying by, we can also see one of those drones that we talked about earlier. Now, getting back into 6v6, in this clip, we can once again see that when in a slide, it seems to force a person into a tack stance when trying to aim down sight. And speaking of tack stance, in this clip right here, this player isn't sliding, and it looks like they actively switched over to tack stance because they were aiming down sight in the previous gunfight. And I don't see any indication of a laser on this gun. So I think, and I'm hoping what this means is they're going the Modern Warfare 3 route where you can activate tack stance at any time without having to use an attachment. Also, I know they've already confirmed On New Movement is returning, but this is our first look at a backwards dive in Black Ops 7's multiplayer. Next, we get a little clip in the VTOL warship, which is likely going to be one of the higher end streaks in the game. And with this, we can see you have access to 6 auto-lock missiles, as well as your regular payload that you can fire, which are probably 40mm cannons. And I decided to nerd out a little bit. We can see the fuel meter here, and I timed everything and measured how much the fuel meter moved. And at least at the time of this clip, the VTOL warship will last for exactly 45 seconds. After that, we get this little over-the-shoulder view, and with this, we can see a few things. First off, it looks like we will once again be able to customize our HUD as expected. This was introduced in Black Ops 6. She's got it set up in a really weird way, so the score streaks show up in the middle of the screen rather than on the side. Also, interestingly, when she switches to this pistol, which looks to be called the Jaeger 45, it appears to be a full auto pistol, or she's got some kind of full auto mod on it. Next up, we can see what appears to be another field upgrade, and this looks like a decoy, a hologram decoy this time around. And it looks much more convincing than the decoys we saw in COD Vanguard. And on top of this, with this clip, we can see automatic doors are in. They have confirmed that the manual doors that were introduced in Modern Warfare 2019, they will not be present in this game for multiplayer. Then we actually get another look at this hologram decoy situation. This character here is not actually a character. That is a hologram decoy. Some people were misidentifying this as active camo, but it looks like as you start shooting the decoys, then it becomes obvious that it is a decoy because it'll look all staticky like this. And just a quick note, after recording this video, Matt Schrantz replied to me on Twitter and confirmed that this is actually called the Echo unit, and it is a decoy. Whereas this is the active camo field upgrade and what it looks like. To me, it looks like it's going to be at least slightly harder to spot than the active camo in Black Ops 3, but we really need to get our hands on it and see what it looks like in an actual real gameplay environment. And also, I'm curious to hear if there's any audio cues that go alongside this, like we had in Black Ops 3, so you could just easily hear when someone with active camo is coming. Now, after that, with this clip, we can see several things going on. The first thing is it looks like this is a cluster grenade, which has been confirmed to be returning. So there are several explosions that are coming out of this. Additionally, we can see this rifle that has been shown off a lot is called the Eagle. For field upgrades, it appears the munitions box is coming back, as expected, of course. That's kind of a staple of field upgrades. And then finally, this is where I want to talk about score streak costs a little bit, because he hasn't earned any score in this situation. So we can see the dog is going to cost 100 score to earn. That streak that I assume is a Hellstorm or something similar is 450 score to earn. And the bottom one there looks a whole lot like the Scout Pulse from Black Ops 6. It could also just be a UAV. I'm not entirely sure on that, but it will cost 350 score to earn. And now looking back at this clip right here, if we do the math, now that we know that the dog is 1,000 score to earn, that means this bottom streak is also worth 350 score, just like the Scout Pulse or UAV that we just saw. And judging by the really faint X you can see in the background there, this could be a counter UAV, or maybe some form of like a jamming device you can earn. But if it is a counter UAV, that's fairly cheap for a counter UAV. And I think overall, this may be a sign that streaks are going to be easier to earn than Black Ops 6, which would be nice because that was one of the big complaints with Black Ops 6 throughout the year, is the streaks were pretty underwhelming considering how difficult it was to earn them relative to previous years. And then after that, we can see what looks like a person activating a C4 that was planted in that area where that enemy is. Now that's it for the gameplay clips that we've seen. However, there were also a couple menu screenshots that we were able to pull out from the reveal. And the first one is our first look at the gunsmith screen, which looks very comparable to Black Ops 6. Not really surprised here. Looks like we have all the same attachment slots, even though the names for those are blurry. They do appear to line up with the exact same attachment slots from Black Ops 6. One thing you can see there is the build code, which is something they talked about. When you have a certain combination of attachments, it will automatically generate a build code that you can share with other people. And so that just makes it a bit easier to copy and paste certain builds. Honestly, now that I see this build code on a controller, it's probably easier to just select the attachments than it would be to type out that long code, but still an interesting feature nonetheless. And then after that, we also got a sneak peek at a work in progress weapon prestige page. And while I already talked about the weapon prestige details that they shared, so I'm not going to dive too deep into this, the main thing I wanted to point out here is it says it's the Krig 6, which is a Black Ops 6 weapon. So maybe this will be an indication that we will be able to prestige Black Ops 6 weapons as well as Black Ops 7 weapons. However, the image of the gun itself is not the Krig 6. That looks a lot more like an H&K G41 or something similar to that at least, which interestingly doesn't really fit with the era of Black Ops 7. That does fit with the era of Black Ops 6, but we don't have a gun like that in Black Ops 6. So I think they're actually teasing a gun we're going to be seeing for Season 6 of Black Ops 6 as well here. In either case, I think what we're seeing here are just some placeholder things, so maybe we'll be able to prestige our Black Ops 6 weapons, but I wouldn't call this confirmation at this point. It does seem weird that they would use a Black Ops 6 gun as a placeholder for this. I think it would be interesting to at least provide the option for players to do that and go back and prestige all of their Black Ops 6 guns if they want to participate in that grind, but we'll just have to wait to find out. And with that out of the way, that's going to wrap it up for every little detail I was able to find as it relates to multiplayer from the Black Ops 7 Direct reveal. Like I said, there were a ton of little things to learn there, and I hope you guys enjoyed this journey with me. It was fun to just sort of nerd out and go through all of this stuff. Even though I know many people are just not interested in the game, I am, and I found this to be quite fun and interesting. And this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. Now that you've seen even more details here, does this get you more excited for Black Ops 7, less excited for Black Ops 7? Are there any other little details, as they relate to multiplayer at least, that you noticed that I didn't point out in today's video? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.